Clash of the Classics.
Hey everyone, that's right, it's time for Clash of the Classics. I'm Donnie.
And I'm Chris.
Hey, remember, we welcome you to yet another episode of Horsepower for an Hour. Great to have you guys here this week. If you're new to the show, if this is your first time, you're going to find every week we roll that clock back. We take a look at two classic models. We look at interior stuff, exterior stuff. We might look at wheels and tires. Very rarely do we look at paint color, but we might have to start that at some point.
I just don't like it when the wheels match the paint color. Otherwise, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's a little silly. But then we vote on the car that we like best, and as always, we welcome you folks to let us know which car you like. Head on over to our website, horsepoweronline.com, or here on our YouTube channel, just go ahead and leave us a message. These battles are fueled by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or simply the ATRA. Today's going to be some fun. It's all about the 1964 Ford Thunderbolt battling the 1964 Olds 442. I want to start with that Thunderbolt. Now, here's a car that we don't often see enough of. We're at least 30, maybe 40 of these classic car shows every year. And these cars are just few and far between. I don't remember only one time. Yes, in fact, it was at Fabulous Fords Forever. It's the only time I've ever seen one.
And there's probably good reason. Because I remember the first time I heard the name Ford Thunderbolt, you're like, oh, right, cool, we're getting ready to see a sweet car. And you see it, you're like, you're kidding, right?
Yeah, it's an old Fairlane.
They approved this to go off into the showroom? Oh, okay.
Well, back in 64, Ford was having a tough time keeping stride with some of those lighter Dodge and Plymouth, their unibody designs. So one of the solutions that engineering came up with was to stuff a big 427 into the smaller, mid-sized Ford Fairlane. That was the idea. They contracted with an outfit called Dearborn Steel Tubing. Put this company on the map, immediately made them an overnight success, and they produced a limited number of race-ready, street-legal cars, and they called them the Thunderbolt. They did a heck of a good job considering they had to make extensive front-end modifications to get the big block to fit correctly. The high-rise manifold, if you look in our illustration or on the images that we have here in studio, you'll see the manifold stuck out of the top of the car so far that they had to create a custom hood, and then they had to also develop a pretty elaborate exhaust system that sort of kind of snaked through the front suspension components. And I think they did a really good job with this. The air induction tubes, I think, the big tubes on each side of the engine that are supplying the carburetor with air, pretty impressive for sure. And this car ran exceptionally well. Quarter-mile times in the mid-11-second range at 122 miles an hour. And we have to remember here, we are talking 1964. Big block 427 producing 425 horsepower with a nut-busting 480 pound-feet of torque. Now here again, like we see so many times in the 60s, the engine seriously underrated. Actual real-life power, more than 500 horsepower out of this car.
For one little lie or less, you could save 50% or more on your car insurance.
Yes, that's indeed.
You know what's funny, though, is I wanted to bring up with this new small car, huge engine thing. I like to imagine somebody in the engineering department who was a little bit older and kind of jaded and kind of had a crotchety old vibe. You know, it's just like, oh, these damn kids, they always want these big motors and these little cars, and we got to redesign. Why can't people just want the 1930 Mercury? You know, it's like,
oh, you know that was going on. You know that conversation
that
was
whole
happening.
These damn kids
Yes.
today has been since the beginning of time. I mean, you know, even in Shakespeare's time, they were writing about kids today don't understand what it was like. And you hear it so much, you know. I like to imagine some old guy in the 60s bitching about it's not like the 30s anymore.
All you have to do is look across the table, because I resemble that remark. I hear myself saying that in the past, and whenever I hear myself saying it, I try to kind of backpedal because I don't want to assume that attitude, but oftentimes I find myself going there. But transmission options were either a 4-speed manual or a cast iron 3-speed automatic. Differential ratios were either a 444 or a 458. There were some massive, and I mean really huge traction bars underneath the rear axle trying to keep that thing stable. And the idea worked because Ford finally had a winner with the ETs in the 11-second range. Ford won, and this was a highly coveted award. They won the 1964 NHRA Manufacturers' Cup Award. Hot Rod Magazine warned in one of their monthly issues that the Thunderbolt was not suitable for driving to and from the Strip, let alone on the street for daily use. Here's the thing. Maybe that was a reason for some of the disinterest in the car back then. I guess we'll never really know. And this goes back to the whole thing about marketing, because where engineering does their job, sometimes marketing fails. And if you can create enough excitement about anything, it doesn't matter what it is. We see that in our society today. You create enough excitement about it, people will buy it.
Yeah, but the only problem is that people are fickle. Machines aren't. Engineering, I'm not surprised they've consistently done their job by putting out a great product. It's, trying to sell it to these damn kids, as our friend Vernon would say. I imagine that would be a bit of a trickier job, trying to appeal to them and really, you hate to say it this way, more or less subconsciously manipulate someone into buying something. I feel like is a harder job.
Yeah, and when you say it like that, it kind of seems yuck.
Well, that's really all that it is.
Yeah.
It's subconscious manipulation.
Well, Ford only produced about 100 of these cars, and the majority of the cars that are left in circulation are here in the Southern California area. So maybe this is the year we'll see them on display. I hope so. Original MSRP back in '64 was $3,780. I want to make that number again. I want to say it again so you hear it clearly. $3,780. Here today, and if we can get a drum roll, we might need a drum roll for this. The value is somewhere between $250,000 to $370,000.
I was half expecting you to say $3,780.
No. There wasn't any. There was no chiding here. This unbelievable. This car is really valuable.
That's an expensive POS right there.
And indeed. But before we go any further, I want to talk about the largest automatic transmission network on the planet. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. ATRA makes our class of the classics possible. Big shout out to them. No one knows transmissions better than ATRA. You got a transmission problem, got to head on over to atra.com. There you'll find a service provider member near you. All right, dude, let's talk about the 1964 Olds 442. One of my favorite Oldsmobiles, probably a lot of people's favorite Oldsmobiles, because this wasn't Grandpa's car. But in '63, Pontiac was set to release the performance-oriented version of their Tempest GTO, and Oldsmobile felt compelled to answer with their own performance version. Here again, we're going to talk about marketing and engineering, but before we go there, this package that they came up with used a 330 cubic inch V8 with a high-lift camshaft and a 4-barrel carburetor. They stuffed all of it into a Cutlass platform, and this new engine was rated at a minimal 310 horsepower. It was probably more like about 370, but they rated it at 310. The engine with the 4-barrel was mated to a Chevy 4-speed with a custom dual exhaust, and hence the term 442.
Ah, clever.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The option was about an additional $285 or so, depending on the dealership that you visited, but about a $285 option. It included a beefed-up suspension and then the upgraded, and this was back in these days, 1964, the upgraded Tiger Paw tires. The standard 254 rear diff was a bit tall, but even so, the car still turned a respectable 15-second quarter mile at about 90 miles an hour. But the strange thing, at least in my opinion, is where Pontiac was aggressive pitching the GTO back there. In fact, it was all about the GTO to the youth market. This thing's a factory hot rod. They called it the GOAT, but it was actually the Tiger platform. Oldsmobile was very subdued, very tentative in their advertising. The only advertising I was able to find, and I hope that you were able to find something more, was a couple of cops. This is for 1964, a couple of cops in a four-door F-85. It didn't even have the 442 badging on it. and that seems strange to me. I mean, why would you not push the car?
Yeah, and the only other real piece of advertisement I found, which I personally enjoyed because there was a nice little bit of musician's humor in there, it said the new sound from Detroit is a combo of 442. And it's got a little silhouette of a band in the back, and then it's got the car in the front. And I have to guess that they're punning on the Nashville number system with, musicians saying, if we're in key of G, G is 1, and then E minor is 6, and whatever. So it's 442. That wouldn't be a very good musical progression, but I think that's what they were going for. But still, like,
Seems again marketing, because performance buffs, people that were into the performance world, and I understand it. You're not looking at Olds as being a serious contender in the performance market.
Well, especially if you're trying to market to the younger crowd. What's the opposite of young? Oldsmobile.
And the Oldsmobile was for the older crowd.
Yeah, and
it was
police
Grandpa's
apparently.
car. And police apparently, right. Well, Oldsmobile could have, and I think should have done a bit more enthusiastic job in the marketing. Pontiac sold, listen to this, 32,000 GTOs in '64. Conversely, Oldsmobile only moved 2,900 442s the same year. That could have easily been substantially higher. I mean, maybe even 10 times as higher if the right marketing strategy would have been implemented. I mean, it's interesting as we do more and more of these clash battles, and I'll say it again, we've said it in weeks past, the one thing that seems to be constant and recurring, and it's across all manufacturers, is a lack of marketing brilliance at key moments. Perfect example of that, a few years ago, we did a pretty intense research and showcasing of the 40s and 50s Dodge trucks. Brilliantly designed. I mean, they kicked some butt, lowering the cab 2.5 inches so ladies could get in and out easier, widening the seat 2 or 2.5 inches so that you had more room for your extra, your third person.
You could have that extra slice of pie before getting in the truck.
Mom and dad and the baby in the front. None of that got communicated. None of that was communicated to potential buyers. Again, engineering does their job most of the time. Marketing and sales, that seems to be where the weak link exists. But original MSRP on the car was $3,500. Today, a good number 2, valued somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000. So now it's time for us to tell, which car do you like and why do you like it?
I'm gonna have to go 442, despite the basic PR fumble. I really like the styling of it, and I gotta say, as weak as an attempt it was, I did like their little new sound from Detroit is 442. It kind of appealed to me.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, I agree with you. The 442 is unfortunately, and there are other, the later in 67, I think 68, they made some changes, and some of those cars are become hugely valuable, but still, even all the way through the end of the 442 run, marketing gets a big D-, maybe even an F. Couldn't give them an F because they did sell some. So we'll give them a D-.
You give you a D for effort, yeah.
There you go, right. And because they just did not, if engineering was determined to present to the motoring public an option that would at least rival Pontiac's GTO, then by all means, you'd have to let someone know. Let's build it and then keep it a secret. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Or the guy in charge of promoting it was probably getting ready to retire. He's all jaded anyway because it's not 1936, and he doesn't care.
Maybe there's.
That's a possibility.
Lot of possibilities. We'll never know the reason why, but I'm with you. I like the 442. Folks, let us know which car you like. I'm pretty sure that the 442 will win this battle, but we'll have to wait and see. Today's Clash of the Classics made possible by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or simply put, the ATRA. With certified service providers all across America, it's easy to find peace of mind when it comes to transmission service and repair. Next time you're having a transmission problem, you even think you got a trans problem, head on over to atra.com. There you're going to find a plethora of transmission service providers in your area. That's it, folks. We'll see you next week.